Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of New Thought Today. It is my pleasure to be here with my good friend, Rev Staci Hylton, out in sunny, really sunny Las Vegas. My normal co-host, Reverend Briz, is in Unity Village at the Anton Conference, and so Reverend Staci and I are gonna take this on home today. So, welcome, Reverend Staci. So glad you're here with us.
Thank you, Rev Z. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry to miss Rev. What do we call him? Rev Briz?
Rev Briz. Yeah,
Rev
we got
nicknames.
We got
Briz
nicknames.
and Z. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
So, and for those of you who may be tuning in for the premise of New Thought today is to definitely highlight our ministers across the New Thought perspective, and then look at where we're going in the future. What are we doing? Where are we going? And how will we apply these principles that we so dearly love into our everyday life so that we begin to live at a higher level? And so first and foremost, let's just do this. Reverend Staci, why don't you give us a little background on who you are and that whole bio piece, and then we'll jump right in.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I am Staci Hylton. I'm a minister, senior minister at the Las Vegas Center for Spiritual Living, formerly known as the Model for Positive Living. Been around for about 23 years. We're having a celebration fairly soon here on October 18th through the 20th. I've been in Las Vegas for 22 years. Jeez. I was, my grandfather was the founder of what's known as LA Third now. And so I am fourth generation religious science. And although I'm fourth generation science, it's always been, it has been with me, but I haven't been with it. Right. So as I moved to Las Vegas, I realized I need to do something different, because I moved to Las Vegas for a new start. And at some point, pretty quickly, you catch up with yourself. And so this was my way back. Through Las Vegas, I have found who I want to be, and found on most levels my magnificence and how I want to be in the world, show up in the world.
Nice. And that's key, I believe, because, you know, in nature, there are no straight lines. No straight lines really exist. That's a math thought process. Mm-hmm. Everything in the universe is curved at some level. And so for me, it's good to hear people being upfront and honest about, well, I zigged over here and then I had to zag back and then I fell down and I got back up and I was crying and, you know, ooh, and then we move forward, because that's life. And yes. And when you can bring that kind of perspective to a ministry, I think it's more welcomed and more received, because that's like me trying to tell somebody, you know, how they should run their relationship, and they ain't never been in a relationship.
Right.
Doesn't really work.
Yeah, I believe in authenticity. You know, I've zigged and zagged and zigged and fallen down more than most, and there was a lot of shame in that. And I think one of the things about religious science, for me anyway, at the time that, and from when I started, there was a lot of shame in that, and I didn't want to own up to it, because you know, you create your world. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to, I knew that, and it was heavy on my heart. And so I was happy when I found my best friend, my co-minister. She's like, just come to one class. You know how that goes. Just one class. I'll pay for the class. And the rest is history. The rest is history.
Yeah. You gotta love those friends who often see something in us that we may not see or we may have forgotten. and bring us back to that point in time. Because in my mind, that is what new thought is to have a new thought about any situation, including yourself.
Yes.
And sometimes that's missed.
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree with you completely. Yeah, and to have I can't say enough about how grateful I am for Rev Cheryl, who is my co-senior minister. She really had. She was my boss before this, and much to her chagrin, because talk about zigging and zagging.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah.
Now,
So I'm grateful.
That's a story I got to hear at some point.
Oh yeah, you'll hear it. You'll hear it at the event in October. I'm sure it will come up.
Yes, that sounds, as they say, tantalizing.
Oh yes.
Well, that is so. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering about this event that we keep hinting to, it's coming up real soon. It's gonna be it starts really, if you will, on the 18th, because there'll be an installation of some new ministers at the center. But it's New Thought in the Desert. An official program is on the 19th and the 20th. There's going to be workshops. There's going to be music. Going to be a church service, and it's something I think you don't want to miss. And so, tell us a little bit more about this, Rev Staci, so people can know what they're going to enjoy or missing if they're not able to make it.
Yes. I had been wanting. One of the best things that I had the opportunity to do was to be a part of the Minister Council. It really was a blessing, especially at the time that I was on the council. We just, all the ministers are great people, but we had a real special bond. I got to serve 2 terms, and I saw. I learned how to put together what, in my definition, what would be a good program. And I wanted to be collaborative. That's my thing, right? Before I used to want to be collaborative to get myself out of speaking. And now it's not that. Now I want to be collaborative because we all have so many gifts and so much talent and so much that we want to give. And so I wanted to offer that to Nevada, which, if you're not in California, and then you've got Mile High, and then you've got some one-offs here and there, but you don't have a lot of New Thought communities. Yeah. And most people from Nevada are from California. And so we kind of miss that. And Las Vegas particularly is one of those places where it's very transient. So it's hard to make friends. It's hard to keep friends. And most people are looking for community, especially after COVID. But even before that, you want community because you normally leave California for some reason, some like me, to just get away from the zigging and zagging, or get away from family or whatever it is. But you need community. And so there are just so many wonderful people that I've met on this journey so far. I've been minister for 10 years. Last June to 2014, I've been a minister for 10 years. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do something with this new talent and this new skill that I've learned from my beloved Ministers Council. And I love music. So I'm like, music's going to be at the forefront. So I'm going to have a concert. That's going to be a focus. And we are blessed to have 3 new ministers, one from Agape, one from Washington State. She moved down here, and then a brand new one. And so I just thought, okay, we'll have an installation. We didn't get to have our 20th anniversary as a center, which would have been in 2020. So that wasn't happening. And then the rest of it, we'll celebrate the 10th anniversary and just have some people that I just adore and are great speakers and great workshop facilitators. And we'll just do that. And so that's what's happening the 18th, 19th, and 20th. David Alt went to school with our founding minister, Reverend Cynthia Clare. And so I thought, well, we'll bring David in if he'll come, if he'll have us, and we'll have him kind of be the keynote for Friday night. And then he'll also speak on Sunday. And then we've got Jamie Lula and Gary Lynn Floyd, who doesn't love the 2 of them. And then Rev Z is going to be there. Rev Briz is going to be there. Reverend Karen Lindsley, Reverend Sunshine Day, Reverend Cynthia Ambrose, one of our newly installed ministers. And then I've got a couple of practitioners. Reverend Sandy Smith, who's also with us, will be installed. She's doing a workshop. and a
Nice.
couple other nice workshops. A couple people from Canada. I wanted it
nice.
global, international, right? So it's
Oh,
going
I
to be
love it.
really.
I love it. Now,
Yeah.
is I know the conference is New Thought in the Desert. Is there a theme that you're going to be working from, or
You
is
it
it
was
just celebration?
it's celebration, but I think when I thought of New Thought in the Desert, it was really just that idea of, we don't have to just be in California. We don't have to just be in Colorado,
Right.
and you kind of come to the desert to get away and to contemplate who you are from a vantage point of maybe not having your family around. And so I think I've learned most about myself from being away from family. Well, my family all lives in LA or California, I'm part of California, San Francisco. And so just that idea of who am I now and who are the people that I know now. And I know that we've all come far, and I've come further because of a lot of you. And so I thought New Thought in the Desert just seems to mean something to me. And then also Lake Havasu. Reverend Val Benedict is a senior minister in Lake Havasu, CSL. And that's the desert. I don't think it gets any hotter than in Arizona. We're close, but not quite there. So that's where the name came from.
And when I heard it and thought about it, very much in line with what you just said, I thought about, one of the key points I think that's stressed in most New Thought traditions is this whole idea of mystics or mysticisms and often when you look at spiritual teachers and spiritual systems, folk went out in the desert to get centered, to lock in on that purpose, to get some isolation from all of the stuff. And so that's what I was thinking. I said, okay, wow, this is a moment to go and get real clear on something. It depends on everybody what they gonna come out to the desert with, but definitely a step in that direction, which I think is needed now more than any other time. I guess everybody say that when in their times, but I'm going to say it for this. I want to say it for this time. We definitely are in need of some different approaches and different perspectives, and they have to be, I think, and I'd love to hear your opinion on that, on this rather, deep ideas and deep issues, because I think in a lot of ways, New Thought has become mainstream. I mean, who would have thought 7 years ago that major corporate entities would be having meditation rooms and wellness programs that talks about all these different types of modalities of healing and getting centered.
That's right. That's right.
And so I'm curious from your perspective in relationship to the conference, how do you see this being a kickstart, if you will? And it's kind of a broad question, but a kickstart into those who are practicing these teachings. How do we begin to not go for the big stuff, but know there's work in the medium and small stuff as well, if that makes sense?
Yeah. One of the things about, again, going back to being elected to the Ministry Council, we were a siloed community. I had no idea who CSO was. And when I learned of all the stuff that was going on in home office, it just brought a sense of pride. And I'm like, okay, well, how do we collaborate? And for whatever reason, we don't tend to do that as New Thought folks, as centers. And I've been saying this for a while. New Thought needs a new thought. We've got to come together, and we used to have 189 people coming through here. We might not have that again, based upon I could watch at home in my pajamas and be comfy and snuggle up with my homie, but that might not happen any longer. So how do we come together and bring more energy to what teaching and a philosophy that is so powerful and is so empowering? And so I just thought, well, let's reach out. I started in COVID, and we kind of moved along and we had 3 centers here at the time. We have 2 now. And then it just not everybody clicks. And so now, it's like, well, let me reach out the box and bring in some folks that I really enjoy, and they, I think, enjoy me. And then let's bring our communities together and bring the best of one another. And I think that's one of the roads in which we'll be successful. We each have regions. And so just reach out to our regional people. Now, my regional people didn't really come around, but I had other folks, luckily. And there's always next year. So I want this to be the first of many events. And we also needed a fundraiser, it's tough out here. It can be, and I don't mean it in the New Thought sense. There is no lack. We all know that. And I don't mean it from that sense. But trying to pay $10,000 a month rent and 2 ministers is no joke, with community not as big as it used to be. It wasn't a joke then.
Right.
Yeah. And then we don't have kids. And I know I hear that from a lot of communities. And so where do we go out the kids? So I'm like, well, I'm going to go out and go find the kids in the community. So I joined the Truancy Diversion Program, was looking for some volunteer judges, which I don't like the term, but, and so they wanted people that would go out to the schools and talk to the kids once a week about coming to school and the importance of that. And so that was one of the ways that we did that. I went out to they asked me to do the prayer for the Chamber of Commerce. So you've got to go out there and be a part of the world, which is what CSL or religious science, we've never done that. So we're not used to that.
Yeah.
And people too,
Yeah. And I think, that is the key to any and every and all problems. I'll put my hand on any kind of book and say that, that without networking and relationships, that is the heart and soul of a community and community building. We're kind of like playing games, right? Because I can't be, no one can be everything to everybody. And so we have to begin to own that and understand that and know that it is through relationships and networking that these effective communities, corporations, families, pick one of those entities, whether it's a small community or a big one,
right,
that makes them work.
Yeah. It's relationships are key. And if we keep, and we all, I believe all of us, most of us have communities that are aging. So we got to reach out the circle, reach out the tent, right?
Yes.
And find some new people and they don't have to come in the doors, but it also has to be a partnership. I've learned enough to know now, it's not just let me give you this, but a partnership. Okay, well, let's support one another.
Right.
And I learned that one the hard way. And I'm still learning it because I think most of us as ministers, we want to give, we want to be generous. We want to be supporting of our people. And yet you got to have some skin in the game because it doesn't always work out. Right.
Yes. And one thing we hear now in this environment that we find ourselves in, there's either direct quotes or indirect quotes about the rugged individualism of America, right?
Right.
And that was never the case.
Never.
Never. From all the way back to when they first came, from London to now, it has never been a one-man show. And I was curious the other day, and I looked up Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was the one who. And when you look at his definition, it's about being resilient and working together, not about me.
Yes.
It's about digging deep and bringing forth the gifts and talents that you have to pour into the pot. It's like that. I'm sure a lot of New Thought centers had that whole stone soup story about the village, and they made the stone soup. Everybody brought in, and that's what we got to do now. We got to make a soup so that everybody gets fed.
Yes, Elzia. Yes, Elzia. One of the other things I did during COVID, and maybe even a little bit before, like I said, the rent is no joke. And so I thought this was also kind of the idea of New Thought in the Desert. I didn't want it to be just CSL. I wanted to also include Unity. And so Unity shared space with us. They were They had space, and they were not happy with their space. The elevator was always broken. They got people that are 80 years old and they can't get up the elevator, so then they go home. And so I'm like, well, why don't we join forces? So that was one of the we did that 2022, I believe. And then from there we have another. It's a Pentecostal community, lovely people. They join us. They have service on Sundays at 3:00 or 2:30, and Bible study on Saturday nights. And then now, just recently, I think as of last week, we have no kids, like I told you, and we have a playhouse, a Paper Moon Playhouse that just joined us. So they have theater classes for kids from, I don't know, 5 to 17. And so it's like, you just got to go out, set your intention, and I didn't have to leave the building. Somebody came to me, I heard you were looking for, that you had a nice space and that we would love to come here and bring our kids here. Would you have us? It's not a lot of money, but every dollar helps. And then it's that partnership, and they know who we are. They know if they want a baby blessing, a wedding, if they want. The one woman, she asked me for prayer the other day. She's not CSL, but she knows, she gets the vibe, she gets the love that we're giving out. She's picking it up. And so she don't have to be CSL, but we're doing what we can for our community and not just the people already here.
And we need to hold this up as a model, because in my mind, in my studies, this is what's needed. These churches and centers and synagogues and mosques and all these temples, I believe, given where we are, they have to become community centers.
Yes.
Where there's lots of activity going on. Some people may never want to go to a church service, if you will, but they'll bring their kids to the children's dance thing or children's acting thing. And once that energy and that vibe, as you say, in that building gets to be one thing, they're going to say, I've been to a few dance classes. There wasn't none of them like this. What's going on in there?
Exactly.
And they say, and the dance teacher said, well, we wasn't like this either until we came. You need to go talk to them, right?
It's true. It's just a whole new energy. And, you're going to pay $10,000 a month. You might as well have some energy flowing through here. So, bring in the people, make sure they're good people. I've learned my lesson there too. Some churches that it wasn't a fit. They didn't want to pay their bills. So, I've learned a lot, and I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm loving serving the community, because, to sit here and have a sanctuary that's about 6,000 square feet and have 50, 60 people, it used to be 200, it's kind of like, oh, remember. Yes. But I'm not trying to go back on any level. And so what can I do now with given what we have, the tools that we have, and my intention is for us to bring more to the community. What can I do now with what we have? And that's always just and we vision once a month. Yeah.
See, and that's perfect. And for those of you who may be just joining us, we have Rev Staci Hylton, the co-senior minister at Las Vegas CSL, and we've been talking about this event that's coming up in just about a week. New Thought in the Desert, and some amazing speakers and workshops and music and chance to fellowship with like-minded souls. And so if you're in the area, show up. If you're not in the area, plan on being there if you can. It promises to be a great event where we can begin to, I'll say, continue building these relationships. There was this song when, I'm going to say just about everybody probably sung it, but maybe you didn't. But I sung it in the South. The knee bone was connected to the thigh bone, and the thigh bone connected to the hip bone, and so forth and so on. And it's only when all these bones get together can you walk.
Yes.
And that's what we have to, I believe, as ministers, as servant leaders, we have to begin to show a walking model, connect all these things together in a walking, working model of how we can serve the people.
Yes. Yeah, the people need it. I know I needed it, and I still need it. And so it not only, by having you all around, I also get to be fed myself, which I mean, it's just extra bonus, you know. I get to do this, I get to serve, and then I get to be served.
Yeah.
So
it's that symbiotic relationship where neither one of the things could exist without the other. So we might as well just hang together and make this thing happen, because that is how life works. And
yes,
like it or not, we oftentimes is given that word that's getting a lot of heat now, that diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging thing. It's under attack in a lot of ways, but from a new thought, specifically a religious science perspective, I think that is the foundation. You know, Ernest Holmes, the founder, said the first sentence of the first paragraph of the book says, "I look forward to the day when science and spirituality walk hand in hand, and we move from the visible into the invisible."
Yes.
And now, back then, I can imagine people looking at that saying, "What is he talking about?" But now we have the science to prove what a lot of the spiritual and religious traditions have taught for ages. And so coupling that together and being in the desert with this new thought in the desert of how we take these building blocks of our teaching and come up with a new thought in the desert where there's mystery and science and insight that's just waiting to be captured. I'm excited and looking forward to being there. And so let's do this. Let's take a little quick break and bring up this whole thing about there's this election I heard coming up.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. I've been trying to follow it, but it's hard. I can't find nothing on TV. There's nothing on TV about it.
Nothing at all, huh? Yeah. Maybe it's just in Colorado. I'm not sure about it.
I don't know. But I know one of our good friends, Reverend Dr. David Alexander, he came up with this program of 100 days of, looking at a prayer call, or not even a prayer call, a call to keep us awake and aware. And I want to bring that up and let you just look at this, and I'll just do a little over talk. So this program has been going from July 28th, and it ends on the November 4th, day of the election. And you can call in, sign up, and you'll get the call to give you an uplifting, positive message about what's going on in terms of how to stay centered, how to be present when you go through all these issues and people. You can see the lineup here. So it's an outstanding lineup. Our own Reverend Briggs is on there, giving some words of wisdom and guiding points. And so we are just trying to help create an environment where we can move forward again in relationship. That's all politics is. That's why you got the Senate and the House and the Congress and the executive level and the judicial level. And I mean, it is a thing that works together. And so we want to model that as much as we can, and make sure that, everyone's on point. And I want to share this one other thing that we do, just like we have this program every Tuesday, every Saturday at 9, we have a Saturday morning lecture series. I'm going to just give you a little snippet of that, and then we're going to get back into our conversation with Rev Staci Hylton, my good friend. And there you have it. So on Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, if you got a moment, step in. It's an interactive program. You can ask questions, and if you're brave enough, we'll even bring you on air. You can come right on air with us and ask your questions and be a part of the program. It's as that first slide said, all of this is about teaching the philosophy of religious science and new thought, to understand that faith is an important part of that. And then more importantly, once you get those first two things together, the philosophy and the faith, or the faith and the philosophy, however you want to put it, then we begin to step into this way of life that we take these principles and use them every day. And that's what we are going to embark on when we get to New Thought in the Desert, is how do we take this stuff, let's celebrate it, let's understand it, and then let's put it to work. And so once again, if you're just joining us, I have my good friend, Rev Staci Hylton, co-minister from the sunny state, city, everything of Las Vegas, Nevada. And I told her I need her to turn that heat down before I get there.
I told you, I'm waiting for you to bring in the cool breeze. Bring the cool breeze.
I saw it was 101 the other day in October, and I was like, "Ooh, boy, that's pretty hot." That's pretty hot. But in that same fashion of heat, this next section we want to talk about, if you will, the heat of how do we spread this teaching? What is the future of religious science and new thought, and how do we take this energy that I'm sure is going to be present in the conference and begin to look forward in terms of how do we actualize this stuff? How do we move forward with what we're doing? And so I'd like to just start by asking a question that we kind of hinted to before, and that's this whole DEIB question. I think in some cases, religious communities are getting siloed and moving away, as opposed to together in how we manage life. And I'd just like to know, what your thoughts are there, and how do you see this maybe unfolding in a more inclusive way going forward?
Yeah, Las Vegas is one of the most diverse communities, I think, in the country. With that being said, it's not saying a whole lot. I'm talking about maybe 13% Black and brown people, maybe 13%. It's not a lot of. That's not a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're located, it really doesn't. You don't really feel that all the time. I'm used to it because I grew up in LA, but then moved to Marin County when I was 7th grade. So very, very, very white community, and so I'm used to it. And yet now that the DEI thing came about back in the day, and when CSL kind of brought that along, I was so grateful. And what I did is I did my own homework, because I hadn't had a lot of studies about this stuff. Just because you're Black doesn't mean you know. Doesn't mean you know. And so I did my homework a little, and I decided I wanted to ground myself in this a little bit more. I'm very much about being inclusive. And so the thing that I did, which was the easiest way for me to address the situation for a community that was very siloed, was to just start a book club. And we read a novel called Small Great Things. And it was very, very impactful, very easy to read. And because it was a novel, it impacted people a little differently than what they thought. They didn't really know what was coming through. So I think that idea of you including things that are a little easier to digest, don't run away from it. It's still going to be here. We still need to embrace it. We still need to know what we don't know so that we can be inclusive to all communities. And just tackle it with 1 foot at a time. Take a step 1 foot at a time, but just don't ignore it. I think that that's the biggest thing. And just because you don't have, we're talking diversity, it doesn't mean you may not have Black and brown people wherever you're located necessarily. But we're not all the same. Oneness is not homeless, right? Or just homeless, so does that. So do you have in your community that's different? Or maybe not in the building, but outside. Somebody is not like just the typical average religious science personality. And so do your homework, find out who's around you, and see what you can learn from them. Because there's something that we can all learn from everybody.
Of course. And I'm sitting here smiling because when you said that, you made me think of these little lessons we used to have in kindergarten and first grade. One thing is not like the other thing, right?
Exactly.
And you had to go in and circle the thing that was different. Now, kind of setting you up for separation real early.
They do that on Sesame Street too? On Sesame Street.
And then we wonder why we can't get together, because we've been taught from the very beginning to separate. Show me what's different. Not how we're the same. And that's what I think this whole diversity piece brings. And as you said, diversity means diversity. It's just not color. It could be race, creed, color, sexual orientation, height, weight. I mean, it covers the spectrum. And so when we take the approach, as our founder Ernest said, be open at the top, we can make expansion in place for all of this stuff to get in, just like a jigsaw puzzle. And we just keep turning it and figure out, okay, it goes there. All right, this piece goes here. And the next thing you know, we have this beautiful mosaic, this beautiful jigsaw puzzle that's put together that creates this stunning image of life and how it should work, which is, to me, that just makes me giggle, as they say.
That's just life. That's just who we are. And if you're not living in that world, then go out and find that world, because you're missing out. Diversity is key. Who wants to say, I don't want to eat, I love steak and potatoes, but I don't want to eat that every day.
Well, I had a lot of thoughts about that, but I'm not going to say any of them. No steak and potatoes every day for me. Now, in that same vein of diversity and where we're headed in the future, one of the big things that we have is social justice. We'll take that and put it over here, and we'll put a big old "and" in the middle, and the environment, which kind of teeters on social justice. And given the storm that we have headed to Florida right now, the whole idea of these two things, because there's things about, the hurricane's going to come through and it's going to create havoc, but there's no global warming, or there's no climate change, or there's, that doesn't affect it. And then there's the question of, if and when that happens, where will the services go? What is the social justice piece of who gets services or services better, or whatever that case might be, which are ideas that people are bringing forth. So from your perspective, in terms of how our teachings could shape our way and how we should begin to lead in these two areas, I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Unfortunately, we still live in a very separated nation, society as a whole. And in case anybody hasn't realized, the black and the brown get the short end of the stick, right? It's how it's been from day one. It's how, on some level, it's designed to be. That's the foundation of it all. And so we're going to have to realize that, I'm not my brother's keeper, but I am my brother and I am my sister. And so, we've got to look out for one another. And if you're not aware that that is the case, or you don't, maybe that you don't agree with that's the case, I think at some point you've got to do a little bit of homework. That's our job. I think, especially as religious scientists, right? We've got to kind of awaken into this. Okay, well, this is all going on out here, and I know maybe it's not my world, but isn't it my responsibility to take a look at something that is outside that I don't like? And I believe we all see it. So just to say that, well, that's not my world, and I'm not going to deal with that because that's a circumstance and that's a condition. Well, I don't think that that's okay anymore. And I think that's one of the things that that we have to shift and have a new thought about, because it just, CSL, we're very intellectual. We're very individual, as we talked about a little while ago. And yet we do have a responsibility to one another. We are here as social beings, and we're spiritual beings, and we need to look out and realize, what can I do to help and what can I do to hurt? And I don't want to hurt, so I need to do my homework so I can realize and manifest that which is best for all beings, because we all deserve a better way of life. And so this climate action thing, the people that are, probably won't have the money to rebuild, and who's that going to be? The people that are most affected, or the poorer people in society, which are typically the people that are of color. Right. And then you've got some people that are also speaking not highly of people of color. And if you don't get the coding is there because you don't see that, you might want to take a different look and talk to somebody that perhaps is of the persuasion of who they're talking about, because it's clear as a bell.
Yeah. And that kind of leads to this next question, in that, given this environment that we see ourselves in and continuing to be in for a minute at least in the future, when we begin to think about leadership and institutions that are going to need to be able to look at the interconnections of all things in life, right, and begin to figure out how to get more oomph out of this machine we're working with. I got this question in terms of, in your perspective, what kind of leadership styles are we going to need, particularly when we start talking about younger generation and bringing them in and having them also bring some fresh perspectives as well, because I'm getting out of touch real soon here. And we have that whole piece of, how do we blend balance traditional ways of being in a spiritual community with the more innovative ones? I know that's a lot to unpack, but
yeah. It's one of the things that I won't say we struggle with, but it's certainly evident, right? And we when Reverend Cheryl and I, both African American women, took over, I started talking about social justice things, and Reverend Cheryl not so much. But there was definitely people that had left because they didn't want to hear that. They wanted old school Ernest Holmes or prosperity or whatever we're talking about at the time. And, and maybe I kind of shoved it down the throat because I was so passionate about it. And that was not the best way to do it, even though my intent was well intentioned. But I believe that we're all coming from, most of our centers or communities are 75 plus. I mean, I know mine is. And so why don't we embrace, we put people out to pasture, and instead of that, there's so much wisdom and so much experience and so much life that has been lived. And if we just include them and their stories and have a multicultural, multi-generational conversations and include them, they're going to give us so much. There's so much richness there and depth in people of a certain age. And so we've got to stop. Well, you're a millennial, so you think like this, and you're older or old or senior, whatever, elderly, and you think like this. And so we discard you, and you discard you, and then you got us in the middle, and we're kind of struck, teetering on both sides. So bring it all to the table, and let's have conversations about how we can work together to move us forward in society. Because we're all going to we've all been young. We're all going to get, God bless and God willing, we're all going to get to the place where we're a little elderly. And so we don't know the latest technology. We don't know the latest fashion. We don't know the latest whatever. We don't know that AI is not going to kill us. And so let's talk about, just talk, have conversations. It's not that, I don't think it's that difficult, but this idea of going back in any way, shape, or form, that's not what Science of Mind is about. It's an upward spiral. No. It doesn't say a backward spiral. Yeah.
And you reminded me of a statement my dad said, often and frequent. I used to say this or that about, old people or whatever. And he said, well, just keep living. That's all. Just keep living. Pretty soon you're going to be old, dude, and you're going to have to deal with this. So get ready. And I think, when we look at ancient wisdom, right, and we look at indigenous communities who had nothing but time on their hand to observe the stars and the plants and the animals and all of that, and really get in tune with all there is. These concepts of certain stages, and we still get it every year with the seasons,
right?
That there are certain stages of life, and that they capsulize them with this whole idea, I believe, of rites of passage.
Yes.
And so they had the elder councils, and then they had the warrior councils, if you will, and then they had the youth council. And then when there was a big decision that needed to be made, a representative from all those councils came together so that they could make a decision from an inclusive perspective,
right?
And be able to as the Native Americans of this country had, and I don't know if it was all communities or not, but there's this concept that says, when I make this decision, I need to make it with the idea of 7 generations away from now. So I need to think really hard about what am I putting in place that's going to affect 7 generations. So that means we got to dialogue, we got to get outside the box. And right. I think New Thought, especially for me, religious science or science of mind, is what is needed to get outside the box.
Yes, Elzia. Yes. I believe too that as well. We've got to, but we stayed stuck so long, and so many people came in when we were doing that prosperity thing, and we're doing that. We're just going to manifest what I want. And we haven't gotten past that. And we, I was very close to my grandparents. So my parents, you're kind of in that kind of individual thing, but my grandparents weren't. And right. So when I go back to that, okay, well, what will my grandparents think would be the best for, not only my generation, but the future generations. And I'm not saying my parents weren't that way, but, they don't know. That's not their first go-to. It's not their go-to. And so why don't we get them think about what would they have said, what would they have done? And we've got them all in our communities. Why aren't we consulting them? And, that's the wisdom right there.
That's the wisdom keepers.
Yeah. And because so just include them.
They've seen things that we haven't, right? And because we know that the whole universe is based on patterns and cycles, they're able to see, although it looks a little different and it, talks a little different, but the pattern is the same.
Right.
And this and given the cycle of life, it's in the same place that this other thing used to be in. Right. So I can give you some insight. Now, I can't tell you how to do it all, but I can say, look, football has changed a lot since they played with leather helmets. But I can tell you what, they still got 2 end zones. They still got a goal post. And you still got to go 100 yards to score. Now,
That's right.
New rules about what you can do here and there, but that's the basis of the game. And so when we listen to these wisdom keepers and then be able to transform that,
right,
now we're going to be doing something.
Right. Because the other way is just, it's no longer working. When something stops serving you, you give it up, right? I left LA for a reason, and I found this teaching and I also believe, back to a question that you asked a little while ago, what else can New Thought do? The practical stories of how you're using this in your life and being the model for that. I'm not perfect because I'm a minister. I don't zig and zag, but I still zig sometimes. And so, those personal stories where I can share with my community, this is what happened this week. This is how I broached it. I messed up a little bit here, and this is how I corrected myself and got back on track. And I think that this whole idea of, we're ministers, we got to do this, we got to do that. I think we have to show up as real folks. And that's one of the reasons why I picked some of the people in New Thought in the Desert, the workshops and speakers that I chose. They're real folks doing real good work and being of service and not trying to be the personality. We talked about that, to just, the big TV star or the big TV minister. There's nothing wrong with. However, we've come to serve. And so how can I serve? And you're going to learn more about me by my story. And I'm going to learn it because then I've taught it once it's out my mouth. Yeah. And so I think that I really believe that, and all of this, the prosperity, we're concerned about the money, concerned about the wrong thing. We're concerned about the condition. What is the underlying cause? And that's what we need to shift. And then we'll be on the road again. We'll be on the road again.
That's exactly right. One of my favorite poems is Sermons We See, and it says, I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. I'd rather one to walk with me than just to show the way. Yes. The eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Advice may be misleading, but examples are always clear. And what we have to do, and what Ernest taught, is practical spirituality. He says, I'd rather you take one of these verses and apply it in your life than to be able to spout this whole book.
Right.
And that's what we have to begin. And that's what I love about the conference. It's going to be a little bit of everything. It's going to be some rites of passage of installation. And then we're going to have some music to celebrate and dance and wake up the spirit. And then we're going to have some talks to kind of highlight those points and workshops to get into a practical place. And then culmination with the service that's going to bring it all together.
Yeah. And then not just about Las Vegas Center for Spiritualism. I didn't want that. I didn't want it to be about one minister. We could have, any one of you could have carried on the whole weekend and we would have gotten a bunch of people. But I want them to get a little taste of each person, and then they'll know who you are. And then I'm a follower. I'm going to, CSL does a lot of good stuff. It's not just CSL, but there's a lot of good stuff going on here. I'm going to tune in on Saturdays. And so I have to applaud you and Rev Briz about the Men's New Thought Summit and all of those that took place that had a space in that, because I got such good feedback about that. The men, the men are underrepresented in our organization. And I think some of I don't know why, but as CSL communities, but we don't want to necessarily take the time, or we don't think to say, hey, this is going on. I'm not doing it, but this is going on. And so you should tune into this because this could maybe be of service to you. And so those are the things that it's just, what's it take for me to just have an announcement to say, this is what's happening. This is, but we want our people to grow, or do we? Right. And so that's what we're going to grow by CSL growing. And we're going to always give, and CSL gives us, and that's how that circulations. And then we take it to the community. But it's going to not be around if we don't start passing along all of what's going on. All of the tools and resources that are offered needs to be highlighted, because it's really some good stuff.
Yeah, without a doubt. And if you're just joining us, I'm here with Rev Staci Hylton, co-minister at Las Vegas CSL, and we've been having a great conversation looking at conference that's coming up next weekend, and just looking at the future of New Thought and how do we make this stuff apply, and looking at the time. It always flies when you're having fun, and we've been having a great conversation. And so we want to slip in one thank you for all of the people who help support this network and this work that we're doing. And if you haven't got your tithe in or your support in, please do so. And I just want to say thank you for those who have. We're going to give them a little shout. And then when we come back, we're going to have our closing thoughts. And we'll be right back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
And there you have it, folks. If you want to see your name or your center on that list, just contact New Thought Media Network, and we'll get you on. You know, one of the great things about some of these centers that are here, some of the shows are shown live through the network, and then after they have done, they get modified so you have just the talk, so you can get just the talk, or you can see the whole service. And you can span the globe, as they say, as we continue to take this idea globally and make it felt throughout the world. So please join us, tell others, subscribe, let other people know we are here and that we're ready, willing, and able to do the work. There's that song that says, why have we come here? And we've come to love, serve, and remember who we are and whose we are. And that makes all the difference in the world. And so, Rev Staci, boy, it's been such a pleasure to have you here today and talk about this fabulous event that's coming up. And one of the things we do is at the end, we have these final thoughts about what we've talked about, where we're going. And I'd like to kick that over to you to get your final thoughts on anything and everything we've said today.
Oh, wow. First of all, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be here. Grateful for the time with you, Rev Z. Always a good time. Grateful for Rev Briz. I'm hopeful, you know. I'm taking a class, Kathy Ann Lewis, Seattle. And sometimes we kind of give hope a bad rap, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Ernest Holmes says hope is better than despair. And yes. I think for many of us, there's been some tough stuff going on, you know, depending on how you look at things. Not from a fearful way or a place of lack, but to bring back that idea of hope, to bring that back the idea of looking at things in a new way. And there's a freshness coming about. And there will be a day after this evening, and there will be something new that comes about. And to look at those things from new beginning and what is mine next to do, because the past is the past and the future is the future. And so I'm looking towards the future now. And there's a lot of great things that have happened in CSL and a lot of great things to come. So we just have to keep our eye on what's next instead of what's been in the past. And that's true just in life in general. But I think particularly we have an organization, church is not necessarily everybody's favorite thing right now. And we have an organization that can bring that to a different place in everybody's mind, because it's not church. It really isn't. And I love the idea of community centers and serving, and from the capacity of serving serving humanity.
Yeah. And you know, my final words is, you know, this idea of this conference, New Thought in the Desert, and it could be New Thought in the city, New Thought in the country, New Thought on the hill. Let's just not having New Thought everywhere. But I think this whole idea of how do we begin this alignment of people that are seeking immediate, if you will, or tangible, real world exercises and benefits for their spiritual practices, so that they can make relevant decisions in their lives based on these core principles and how do we overcome misconceptions and our own shortcomings, so that we can align with nature and people of like mind to create a spiritual viewpoint that's second to none.
Yes. And make it fun.
And make it fun. Oh, without a
And
doubt.
make it fun.
Yeah. 'Cause if it ain't fun, I ain't coming. I'm telling you that right now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I am not coming. Well, thank you so much, Rev Staci, for this time together, and I look forward to heading out to the desert next week. I'm all geeked up and prepared and ready to go. And so, thank you once again. Please, those who are online, subscribe, recommend, and do all that stuff. And until we meet again, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Until we
Betsy.
see you again.
See you soon. Bring that cool breeze. Don't forget.
I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna bring it.